Let's see if I can get the mic working. All right. Thanks so much, everyone, for coming out and for your flexibility. The weather. I kept watching the weather, and it looked like it was going to be fine. And we even got here and said, "Sure, patio sounds great." And then, as we were saying those words, it started sprinkling. So, but we are thrilled to have a bunch of folks here in person, and then as well, we've got folks on Zoom ready to talk about multimodality in transit and transportation. So my name's Megan Owens. I am the Executive Director of Transportation Riders United, also known as TRUE. In case anyone isn't familiar, we have spent the last 25 years working to get more and better public transit and other affordable, sustainable mobility options. I'd also suggest mark your calendar for September 25th because we are celebrating our 25th anniversary of fighting for better transit. So we're going to have a big gala with lots of partners from all throughout TRUE's 25 years. And while we certainly haven't achieved everything we might have hoped for, we have made some huge strides in the right direction. And one of the things that I've realized is we've done a lot to help train and build the community that is fighting for this work. And I'm gonna completely take credit for Christina, because who's going to be our keynote speaker tonight to talk with the city working on complete streets, who worked as she was finishing up her master's degree in her. We heard from both Oakland County and Calhoun County about their efforts to expand transit throughout their counties. We have next month coming up, DDOT and People Mover. So we're doing a whole series of these Transit Tuesday talks. And while we're mostly focused on public transit, buses and such, we know that that is just one part of the transportation ecosystem. And what we're really here to focus on tonight is that broader definition. We want a balanced transportation system where everyone can get where they need to go, regardless of whether they drive. So that could mean walking, that could mean biking, that could mean a scooter, that could mean your own car, that could also mean a bus or bike or shuttle or other such. So we want to look at the broader transportation network. Tonight, our focus is really on those walking and biking pieces. And so we have two excellent speakers to give you some background or some updates on what's happening on the transportation front, focused specifically on the city of Detroit, but then also perhaps we can look into some connections throughout the region. But so yeah, we will have each of these speakers share a little bit about what they have going on in their respective areas. And then I got some questions for them, and then I'm sure you guys have some questions, and then we'll also invite anyone on Zoom who is able to put in a question to, we'll answer some questions there. And then assuming the sprinkling rain has stopped or people are hardy, we are right near the Southwest Greenway. So we can go out and do a walk. Let's go out and look at some of the infrastructure and some of the efforts that have been underway to make it easier and safer, more attractive and more convenient to walk and bike and otherwise get around our beautiful city. So anything else that I need to give by way of intro? All right, well, we are going to start with Todd Scott, who is the director of the Detroit Greenways Coalition, who has sometimes I'm the transit lady, he's the bike guy. And I know he does so much more than that, but he's been a great partner with TRUE for many, many years on advocating for multimodal options. So I will literally pass the mic over to Todd. If you can
Great.
Either hold it or can.
Great, I'll hold it. Well, thanks, Megan. Yeah, Todd Scott, Executive Director for Detroit Greenways Coalition. We're not as old as TRUE. We started informally in 2007 because a lot of nonprofits in Detroit were building greenways or trying to get bike lanes put in. and they were struggling with it. The city was not at the table and not involved in that. So the Community Foundation for Southeast Michigan brought all these groups together, and they became the basis for the Detroit Greenways Coalition. And then about 12 years ago, we became a nonprofit, advocating for not only for greenways, but complete streets and making things safer for folks to get around in many different ways. And we realized the incredible value of transit for helping people go longer distances, to put your bike on the bus or just walk and use the bus to go longer distance to get to places where you couldn't get otherwise. So, and I'm also a multimodal. When I use the bus, I have a hard time walking to the bus stop, even though it's like 0.9 miles. I always ride my bike there and throw my bike on the front. But so basically, when we started, as I mentioned, the city really wasn't that interested in doing greenways. And you know, to their credit, they hadn't gone through actually, they hadn't gone through bankruptcy yet. So they were like really struggling with money. And so are they going to start building greenways for people to walk and bike on? That wasn't a priority for them. But fortunately, you know, we have good philanthropy in the Detroit area, and they were making investments not only in the Riverwalk, but also in the DeQuinter Cut. And there were a lot of doubters about the DeQuinter Cut before it was built because people could not envision what a greenway would look like. Even the citizens who lived nearby said they were not going to go down into that ditch and use that trail. They didn't trust that the police would come there if there's a problem or that emergency would show up. And so they weren't going to use it. But once it got built, there was a leap of faith. The community was like, oh, can we make this longer? This is not long enough. And so the next step was, you know, more phases to connect it to the Riverwalk, another phase to connect it to Eastern Market. And now it's even continuing either further on with the Joe Louis Greenway. Now, originally the Joe Louis Greenway was called the Inner Circle Greenway, and it was an idea someone in the city had to. There was 8 miles of abandoned railroad that Conrail was no longer using. So what if we bought that land and then connected up both ends, connect one to the DeQuinter Cut, connect the other end to the Riverwalk, and make this big loop, which we call the Inner Circle Greenway. And we were told this was a wild hallucination, and that come on, this is not going to happen. And but we had some support in DPW, and they helped us along the way. And at some point, when Detroit hired a new planning director, Maurice Cox, he said, you know, this shouldn't just be a biking and walking trail. This should be a neighborhood redevelopment project that connects up all the investments we were making in the neighborhoods. It becomes an answer to the question of, are you only doing things in downtown? And the answer would be no. Look at this greenway that's going through the neighborhoods and connecting everything up. Connecting to transit was a very important part of the trail as well. And so the city fully got on board, and the mayor fully got on board. In fact, I was told this is one of his top 2 projects for the city is to get the Joe Louis Greenway built. And as a result, the city pursued and was successful and get a lot of grant money to build out the Joe Louis Greenway, which has many segments that are under construction right now, which I'm sure Christina can talk about. But it is one of the most profound trail projects in the United States, and even in the world, because it does have a connection to the Gordie Howe Bridge. I was just up there the other day. There's a little hole in the fence where we're going to be able to come off the trail and go through the little hole in the fence and get to our own customs processing unit, get on the bridge and go across the bridge on a fully separated 10-foot path all the way to Canada, where it'll connect up with more trails over there. So it's super exciting, but we have, you know, we're doing so much, and so much has changed in the early days. Our early days started in Corktown, trying to get bike lanes put in. And I tell you, it was a very difficult proposition to do. You know, we had traffic engineers saying, wait, you guys want to remove on-street parking? We can't do that. You know, but we worked them through it, and we brought in one of the top bike engineers in the United States come in and talk them through it and said, you know, these are problems to be solved. And they worked it through things, and they started getting the first bike lanes in Detroit, put throughout Corktown, and then moving beyond that into protected bike lanes and improving widening sidewalks, doing road diets. And so things have totally changed from where we were not long ago. And I'll especially mention Michigan Avenue, just out here, was the first bike lane on a state trunk line in the state of Michigan. And that was a real problem, not because of James here from M down here, but from previous people who were working on the project. They said, we cannot have dedicated parking on Michigan Avenue. No, they want, the thing is the outside lane was this quasi driving parking lane. And they said, we can't make that a designated parking lane on this highway unless Detroit wants to take over ownership of that lane itself. And so we finally talked them through it. And then they said, well, the road's going to be too curved. It's going to be too much of a slant towards the curb, and all the bikes are going to steer into the curb and crash. So I talked to my friends in Chicago who are top traffic engineers, and they said, well, if that's the case, whether the bike lane's there or not, if people are going to be crashing, they need to fix that. And that finally ended up, we went up to the state. We realized there were some law issues pertaining to designating parking on state trunk lines. We found a gray area working with the deputy director of MDOT, and we got them put in. And from then they progressed to protected bike lanes. And now with the Michigan Pell study, I don't know if you guys were involved with that, attended any meetings, but now they're going to be sidewalk level bike lanes. It's going to be completely transformative, not only in this area, but it's going to be an example that DOTs from other states are going to come here and see and figure out how did we do this in Detroit. So it's super exciting. Their future's bright. We got a long ways to go. We're still having a lot of fatalities of bikes and pedestrians on Detroit streets, which we really need to tackle. City's starting to do that now with complete streets and safe streets for all. And I guess I can hand it over to Christina. Yeah.
All right. So thank you, Todd. Yeah. So we know for a lot of years, a lot of Detroit's transportation was focused on cars. And we have some big old wide roads where cars go way too fast. I am excited to say the city is not only aware of this, but has been working really hard for several years to really make the streets for people again, recognizing that these areas between buildings are not just sewers for cars, but are really important community resources that, if done right, can really overhaul a community. And I happen to live right near Livernois in the Avenue of Fashion, and I love taking my kids on those sidewalk level bike lanes and hanging out at the sidewalk cafes there. That's just one example. And the person who's really leading a lot of that effort is Christina Peltier, who is, let's see if I can get the title right, works for the City of Detroit's Department of Public Works and is the Deputy Director of Complete Streets, and really tackling a lot of these critical efforts. So thank you, Christina, for joining us. There you go. You can put that if you want.
I think I'll hold it. I like to move my hands so that I help not be so distracting. So thanks for inviting me. I just want to highlight how important organizations like TRUE and the Greenways Coalition is. Because of their work, it pushes municipalities to change and make improvements. So a little context, as she said, I went to Wayne State, ended up doing grad school in Montreal at McGill, and then came home and interned with TRUE, worked part-time, wrote a paper on financing public transit, and it really set the stage for my career. So appreciate all that TRUE does. Worked in Toronto for about 5 years, then came back to the city of Detroit to work on the Complete Streets team in 2018. The mayor at the time thought it was really important to look at how can we improve our streets, developed a strategic neighborhood fund with a lot of streetscapes that you see to this day on Kirchville, McNichols, Livernois, Dexter, and as you heard, advocated for the Joe Louis Greenway. I moved from DPW in 2018 after about 6 months over to General Services. So I'm going to start talking about the Greenway. And I've since changed jobs, but I figured we set that stage. So Joe Louis Greenway, it's roughly 30 miles, 70% of it's off street, about 2/3 of it's funded. There's people in this room that you don't know that even help work and try to pull funding in for this project. So keep doing what you're doing. You never know who's partnering with you and around you. So the Conrail section was purchased in 2019. This goes from West Warren, follows the curve of Oakman all the way west to Joseph Campo. Majority of that is funded because of all the work from a lot of advocates. One grant's outstanding with Federal Highway Safety, but we're all going to keep it positive. So you can actively ride on West Warren all the way up to I-96. We've started construction from I-96 over to Joseph Campo and McNichols. The only section that's not funded is between Woodward and DeQuinder and Highland Park, and we're hopeful we'll get that federal grant. So as far as the Greenway, as Todd said, it started as a rail to trail project, but through the community engagement, Ralph C. Wilson funded a framework plan. That framework plan, residents decided what was the Greenway to them. And it became about blight removal, community building, generating housing, generating small businesses. We pulled 31,000 tires off the first 3 miles, 37 Olympic swimming pools off the first 3 miles of garbage. So this really was a rail that divided communities, and it became much more than just a bike path or a walking path. You'll notice on older maps, the alignment's different. Residents wanted to connect to Southwest Greenway, which you will hopefully see today if the rain holds off, and the Gordie Howe International Bridge. A lot of the advocacy work that Todd did to make sure bikes and pedestrians could be on that bridge, residents wanted to make sure they connected to it. So definitely check out the Greenway. There's a live map that shows what's under construction, what's built, and what's funded. You can go to joelewisgreenway.com. If you have questions, you can email the team directly at joelewisgreenway@detroitmi.gov. You'll see it all on the website, just joelewisgreenway.com. Also through the Greenway, there was a larger neighborhood planning study. Now the planning department's looking at how do we get people to the Greenway from the neighborhoods. So definitely follow along. And again, email if you have any questions on the Greenway. Now my current role for the last 9 months, I came back to Complete Streets. Complete Streets is now located in Public Works. We maintain roads, we maintain bike lanes, we maintain garbage pickup at DPW, and we design streets. I have a team of about 5 working on everything from freight to bike lanes to improving transit stops. And we're kind of the conduit to the other divisions in DPW, city engineering, traffic engineering, street maintenance, solid waste, and also to planning, Office of Innovation and Mobility, Office of Development and Grants. So there's many people working on these projects within the city. Complete Streets, currently, what we focus on is the streetscapes that you saw that we're wrapping up. Dexter's the last streetscape from Davis into Webb. I shouldn't say the last. We're working on Michigan Avenue with MDOT, Peterborough with Midtown. So there are more projects coming along on our website. If you want to see what those projects are, go to Complete Streets. Just Google Complete Streets at DPW, and you can see the current streetscapes. We also work on safe routes to school with the school districts, trying to make sure there's safe ways for kids to walk. We coordinate with the Greenway, and then we lead the master transportation plan for the city. We're going to be updating that transportation plan soon. So if you're interested in getting involved, I'm going to ask you all to go on to SS4A, Safe Streets for All, SS4A, at detroitmi.gov, and please sign up for our email list, because we're going to get all your input on what should we be designing on these streets, what should be the bicycle network. Our bicycle network online was outdated. We're updating it currently. We do slow streets we're trying to implement, which is traffic calming, curb extensions, bump outs, mini traffic circles. We have 2 across the whole city. We have 3 more under construction, but we're looking to fundraise to do more slow streets to reduce traffic. My division also supports traffic engineering division. We put out 11,000 speed humps across the city. And then the really exciting piece, there's a lot of exciting pieces, but our Safe Streets for All program. In 2022, we were awarded $31 million to address the most dangerous streets in the city under city jurisdiction. This does not include state or county roads. And in 2023, we were given another $31 million to target the transit stops in the most dangerous areas in the city. Both these grants have been secured with grant agreements. We're going to start engagement in the next year. And we're going to be looking for feedback on what we're doing at those locations. It could be everything from signal improvements to curb extensions to bike lanes where necessary, road diets. Every intersection or road is going to have a different issue based on what kind of crashes we see. Then we're going to analyze that data over the next 5 years. And also happy to say Gratiot made the list for Safe Streets for All. Federal Highway Safety Administration granted us $12.5 million to do a demonstration project on Gratiot. It's a long corridor, so we can't do big curbs and fancy stuff like we did on the streetscapes, but we can pilot what we can do with paint and delineators. And we are in the process of finalizing our grant agreement currently with FHWA, so those funds seem to be safe. So there's been a lot of engagement over Gratiot already with Michigan Department of Transportation. Folks have asked for bike lanes, for transit lanes. Please sign up at ss4a at detroitmi.gov if you want to get involved. We need you to come out. We need you to voice your opinions on what's your priorities for Gratiot. It is one of our heaviest ridden transit lines. So in addition to that, we do a lot of other small projects like outdoor dining. You see the outdoor dining and parking spaces or on sidewalks across that city. That's my team. I mentioned the speed humps already. Definitely check out again, Complete Streets at DPW. You could see a whole list of the project. But from there, I think I'll open it up to any questions, and maybe Todd should come back up too.
First, let's hear then yeah, let's absolutely ask, get some questions. I get to use moderator's privilege to ask the first, and then we'll get some who are here. And then if there are folks on the Zoom that want to ask some questions, we very much want to get there as well. So thank you so much. I continue to learn more pieces about what you guys are doing. So quietly, they're doing so much in so many parts of our huge city. So it's really exciting to see. The thing that I keep hearing, especially on the Greenways and a lot of the other important efforts, what is the impact of the change in federal administration? Are some of those funds being clawed back? Unfortunately, I have been hearing at least that that federal infrastructure projects that involve bike lanes, especially in traditionally underserved communities, are being seriously questioned, revisited. I don't know the best way to say that, but I'm curious what's happening right now in terms of the federal funding that you have. Or, is it safe? What's any thoughts as to where that's headed?
I'll start and I'll pass it to Todd, who might be able to say more. So our Safe Streets for All 2022, 2023, and 2024 grants are all safe. They're about creating safer streets and reducing crashes. Like I said, we don't have our 2024 Gratiot federal grant agreement yet, but we are working with Federal Highway Safety Administration now to get that finalized in the next week or so. We are good still on a rail elimination grant over on Lanyo, which would benefit the Joe Louis Greenway. The verdict's still out on reconnecting communities, RAISE, and our active transportation grant, which would have built the section between Woodward and DeQuinder. So I don't know if they really know yet. It's still a moving target, but I can say the Safe Streets All crash reductions are safe, and the Federal Highway Safety Administration did release another 2025 SS4A grant, which we're in the process of applying for. So I'll pass it to Todd because he may have more information or not.
I don't know. A lot of folks don't know. It's such a muddy mess, and I know they've been delaying. I know that SEMCOG told me that their 2023 Safe Streets for All grant still does not have a contract with the feds, and there hasn't been much communications about making that happen. So it's extremely frustrating. I mean, recently the Secretary of Transportation issued a memo where they approved some grants, but they said they'd removed all the grants that had leftist requirements. Leftist requirements, our bike lanes leftist requirements. I don't know, but it's extremely frustrating. We did lose a grant ourselves. We were doing a research project on how DOTs can better engage community, especially communities that don't traditionally get engaged on transportation projects, and that money got pulled from us. So luckily it's not too big of a hole in our budget, but it was disappointing.
Now that's good to hear that a lot of the funding that is enabling these awesome steps forward is secure, is continuing to move forward. There's definitely a lot of uncertainty. There are wonderful people at the USDOT who are trying to support these projects. But again, they have to follow what the administration says. So we'll keep an eye on that. All of these things tend to be funded through a whole mix, like transit, of local and state and federal funds. So maybe this is a good pitch to make sure you are regularly talking to your local and city and or local and state and federal legislators and decision makers and reminding them that this stuff matters to you. They need to consistently hear it. We sometimes hear, well, nobody really cares about that stuff. People are complaining about these other issues, but transit, bike lanes, who cares about those things? So please continue to be loud on those. So yes, we've got a question over here. That is so cool. I hadn't seen that before. So let me just repeat that quick for anyone who was on the Zoom. There was both a thank you for street sweepers on the bike lanes. Oh, that makes such a difference. It's a wonderful thing to see. So a big thank you on that. And then question about redevelopment around, especially to Quinder Cut, but I think more broadly, seeing new housing or incentivizing redevelopment along some of these spaces. So I'll ask Christina, whatever you're able to add.
I appreciate the comment about the sweepers. I'll let our street maintenance team know. For a long time, it was hard for us to get the equipment running. It takes almost a year and a half just to order a street sweeper. So I will definitely relay that message, but keep on us and let us know when there's issues. And then does everybody know about Improved Detroit, the Improved Detroit app?
Sharon. Okay.
So I suggest everyone who's on the call or here in the room goes on a Play Store, search Improve Detroit, download the app. You can report missing street signs, missing stop signs, potholes, a variety of city issues. Those are tracked. Those are sent to the specific department. And then we're tracked on how we're responding and how fast we were responding by leadership. So be our eyes and ears out on the streets. I can't watch all the streets by myself. So please use Improve Detroit. We do follow it. So that's the street sweeping question. Now, as far as housing, if you go on a planning and development's website and you search Joe Louis, they have a whole neighborhood study about how they're trying to bring housing, commercial development. There's been several developments I've known since the city in 2018 that have tried to do housing along the DeQuinder Cut. It really comes down to what they can market, what kind of incentives. So definitely check out neighborhood planning study under planning and development department, and you can see where they've landed with, I think there's 6 different sections of the Joe Louis Greenway, how they're interacting with each section because the markets are so different around the Greenway. I wasn't as involved, and again, I've been 9 months at DPW, so I don't know where they landed.
Excellent. You want to add?
Yeah, I think one of the other issues with the DeQuinder Cut is that some of the landowners don't have a track history of doing anything. And I think one of the landowners also owns this hotel next door too. So it kind of gives you, yeah. They were actually during the construction of the DeQuinder Cut, they were caught shoveling all the debris out of their building onto the DeQuinder Cut. No. The city took action on that one and said, no, you cannot dump your debris onto our greenway as it's under construction. So yeah, I don't know. I think they could be doing a better job.
And I think that is a broader issue across the city of Detroit. There are a lot of landowners who think they are sitting on gold mines and refuse to do anything unless someone wants to give them massive multi-million dollars for these properties, which beyond what they are reasonably worth now. So I know there was an effort previously to adjust the taxing so that property owners who are not doing anything with their property actually have a financial incentive. They're actually charged at a higher rate than as opposed to just I'm not explaining it very well. But anyway, You want to, so there are absolutely ways that we can discourage vacant properties and encourage greater development. The city can do some, but there may need to be state and local policy changes. If you're able to add anything to that.
Just briefly, this is again why it's important to come to community meetings like this, come to the city's community meetings. We do have a blight and beauty team that is working on some of those specific property owners and some of the specific corridors. So please keep doing what you're doing.
Awesome. If others have questions, I will actually throw a question to Todd. I want to point out a certain elephant in the room that we are not the most representative as three speakers of the city of Detroit. And sometimes there's this perception of, oh, bike lanes, rapid transit, that's just all for them rich white folk who want to move into the city. It's not for real Detroiters. But Todd, you've shared with me before some of the bike culture that has long existed in the city of Detroit that people may not know about. Can you share a little bit about the local bike culture that has long existed?
Yeah, I think people overlook the fact that Detroit is the heart and soul of American Black bike culture. We have, I don't know how many, I have a list of 80 clubs. I don't think they're all active, but let's say there's 45 very active bike clubs in Detroit, and nearly all of them are African-American led. But they're not the traditional bike club that people think about. They're not wearing Lycra. They're not going fast. I mean, when you go on this bike ride, you're part of a family. And everyone's together. And if your bike gets a flat tire, everyone waits for you because everyone got that same flat. So it's very unique. And it's actually the Detroit bike culture has been shaped by the city quite a bit. It started back in the earlier days with just folks riding together. But then, the streetlights weren't working in Detroit. So then one of the clubs started putting lights on their bike. And then another club was like, whoa, this is like art form. And they got so good at putting lights on bikes that it became amazing. And the music. And riding together where people might not feel safe riding on a busy road by themselves. They feel safe riding in a group. We have a lot more trikes and bikes with stereo systems and lights because it's a very flat city. And you don't need strong legs to pedal around Detroit. Detroit has always been one of the top bike cities in the United States. In fact, in 1898, it was either us or Brooklyn were the best bike cities in the United States. And I think this bike culture that we have now is bringing a lot of that back. It's just a great place to ride. We just did a ride last week, Bike to Everywhere event. We partnered with the Pedal Up Riders Bike Club, who led the ride, set the route, and they're just another great example of a really cool bike club that is making things happen in Detroit. And, I think earlier on, people were talking about the revitalization of Detroit, and they were pointing to, the Dan Gilberts and Illich and that. But, I think a lot of these guys, I tell these men and women on these bike clubs that you guys are revitalizing it. You're taking over the streets. You're showing that it's safe to ride together and fun, and you're providing family and support for folks who really need it. And it's just a great thing that we have here. We're just so incredibly fortunate.
Thank you for sharing that. And I believe you guys have a listing on your website. You have a calendar on your website of different group bike rides that are happening. I was hoping to get out there last Friday, but these group bike rides are so fun and such a good community of people getting together and seeing different parts of our city. Bikes are slow enough that you can really see things, but fast enough that you can get places. So just a little ad there to check out Detroit Greenways. What's the website?
DetroitGreenways.org. And the calendar's not fully up to date yet. I still got to add a few more things.
But there's at least some, and that's at least one good place to find out about ways to get out there. Questions from our audience? Other questions? Let me actually see if I can pass the mic. Even if folks on the screen can't see you.
Yeah. I was wondering, so I've noticed in my neighborhood, the police keep accosting people for walking in the street. And I was wondering, is that illegal? And what should I do about it? Should I go to the Board of Police meeting with the city, and then also from a safe streets for all perspective is kind of the strategy. Should we, focus on fixing sidewalks, or is there something? Is it okay to also just be walking in my neighborhood street, right?
That's a great question. Or is that something you're able to give at least some response?
Start. Thanks for bringing that to my attention. I had not heard that yet, so I'd love to find out more information from you later. We do have a big sidewalk program to replace sidewalks to help block clubs and seniors with the sidewalks. We've been ongoing with that for quite a few years. Funding is decreasing, but we tend to target, again, block clubs. We've had requests going back as far as the 2020, 2021 that we're still trying to keep up with. We try to wait to replace sidewalks until the utilities come through first. But I'm not aware of the issue of people as far as the police. So I'll talk to you later about that. It is technically the responsibility of property owners to maintain their sidewalks, but the city sees this as an important investment. So that's why we try to support.
Yeah, can you talk more about the legality of where and when people can walk and bike?
Yeah. So, well, first of all, keep in mind too that the police don't really know the laws all that well. We've had incidences this year where the police pulled over bikes that were operating fully legally. The law says if there is a sidewalk, a usable sidewalk, you must use it. But I think if you were to go to a court and say, well, I don't feel the sidewalk was in good repair, or I didn't feel safe walking on it, if there's a lot of vegetation along the sidewalks, people might not feel safe walking on them. We've seen that a lot of times on Woodward up near Palmer Park. I was at a very early Safe Routes to School meeting where we had people from Lansing come down and say, yeah, we see students walking in the middle of the street. I think we need to tell them to walk on the sidewalks. And the police said, no. They're walking in the middle of the streets because they don't want to get jumped, right? So I think it's important that when you see someone doing something that you think might be wrong, you should ask them, why are they doing that, and understand their reasoning. I hear bikes say, well, you shouldn't ride on the sidewalk ever. I'm like, well, they're probably riding on the sidewalk because they don't feel safe riding on the street. So let's fix the street. And that's how we can fix the problem, rather than, constantly berating people or telling them what to do. Let's just fix the problem so they feel safe.
I think that's a great point. Again, the goal is to have infrastructure so everyone does feel safe and comfortable and convenient to walk and bike. But we're not there yet. No one would claim that we are. There is a long way to go. So, yeah, the police really shouldn't be causing trouble there. It might be worth talking with the local the local police precinct. I've actually had some good conversations with some of our local police precincts about why are they focusing their attention in certain areas and not others. And there might be more than you know. But I appreciate you bringing that up. That's a great point. Please.
We're just starting to meet with the Citizens Radio Patrol. How many people know about the Citizens Radio Patrol? There's neighborhoods across the city since the late 60s who have organized, patrolled the streets for safety reasons. And we're actually working with them because they have interest on what are the rules as far as bikes, pedestrians, and scooters. So I'm going to make sure we continue this conversation with them. And once we get more information, use them as a conduit to get information out regarding rules like this. And then I think the League of Michigan Bicyclists is actually working on a training for the police department again. I'll see if I can get follow-up information if that's been scheduled.
Yeah, people don't, even the police don't always keep up on what all of the different rules are. But yeah, that is definitely an ongoing challenge and hopefully something we continue to see improvement on. It sounds like we had a question from the Zoom.
So this is asked by Ethan Benedict. In the city of Detroit, who's responsible for clearing snow from the sidewalk network? Do you know to whom the responsibility falls in other Michigan jurisdictions as well? Sorry.
I can't speak to other jurisdictions, but in the city of Detroit, property owners are responsible for their sidewalk up to the curb. We call this the berm area. So it is the responsibility of the private owners to shovel their snow and also to maintain their alleys.
Yeah, and we know that doesn't always happen, but hopefully we can make some improvements.
Yeah, and for other jurisdictions, it really depends. State law is silent on this, but they do allow cities and villages and townships to have local landowners be responsible for the sidewalks. So it's really up to your local municipality about what they've decided to do. What's interesting about this whole discussion is that in the previous administration, the Federal Highway Administration had something on their website saying that under ADA, the road agency is responsible. Now, that conflicts with what's going on here. Or maybe in this case, the road agency has the ability to defer it to the landowner, but somebody has to do it. You can't just point fingers and say someone else does it. It has, at the end of the day, it has to be done for ADA requirements. But I think now with this change of administration, there's going to be less interest in enforcing ADA requirements.
That's a great point. And again, areas where there's still some challenges, but hopefully we can see improvement. Yes, question over here. You able to speak for the folks on the Zoom?
All right. I don't know if this is allowed, but do you have any opinions on who might be especially strong on these programs we want in the next mayor?
I'm pretty sure none of us can give opinions as to candidates, either as city officials or as 501c3 organizations. I will share, True is hosting a candidate forum. A mayoral candidate forum. We've done a questionnaire that we are sending out to all of the council and mayoral candidates to ask them what do they commit to do as the next mayor or as the next council. Most of those are more on the public transit side, but one definitely does ask about kind of the safe streets and generally how we're going to improve walking and biking throughout the city. So we will, in the next few weeks, be getting results back on that questionnaire, and we will let you hear directly from those candidates. And then June 4th, any Detroit voter, please either join us or watch online. We've got most of the mayoral candidates committed to join us to specifically answer questions about what they're going to do on public transit and related issues. So while we will not be endorsing or supporting any candidates, we will be working hard to get that information out to voters to help make sure people can make informed decisions about those candidates. So.
And the Detroit Environmental Agenda is also going to publish a voter's guide. And I know Joel from True and myself are working on the transportation questions. So maybe there'll be a question about transit on there, as well as complete streets. Also, the Detroit Parks Coalition is going to be having a mayoral forum as well.
So there will definitely be lots of opportunities to learn more about some of these positions. Again, a lot of our organizations or city officials have to be extremely careful not to give any perception of bias towards or against any candidate, but we will work hard to get information out. Did you want to add something or ask something?
I had two questions, but really quickly, if you missed any of that information about the mayoral candidate forum, there are some flyers in the back. So please visit the back table for all the upcoming events and different things that all three organizations are doing. Two questions. One, what does streets for people look like? Like, we know as pedestrians when a street is dangerous or when something is inconvenient, but we aren't the experts, so we can't always put our finger on it or articulate why this isn't the best thing for Detroiters. So I'd love to hear more explicitly what streets for people look like versus streets for cars. And also, how do we as riders and walkers and all those things, how do we get involved? I know you touched on it earlier, Christina, but just how do you get involved and how do we support these efforts? Because it benefits all of us.
So streets for people, again, all users, bus riders, transit, walkers. I'd love for you all to go to the Complete Streets webpage I mentioned before at DPW. There's a Streets for People transportation plan that was done in 2022. We're going to be updating that plan. We're going to need all of you to come out to community meetings to help advocate what's important to you. Also on that website for Streets for People, you will find a comprehensive action safety plan that talks about where the crashes were and the data and what strategies community members advocated for back in 2022. There's also street design guides that residents gave input on. What should a slow street look like? What should a major trunk line look like? All three of those plans, including the slow street network and the bicycle network, will be updated with the Safe Streets for All grant. So that's where I'd love to have as many people come out to community meetings as possible. Again, sign up at SS4A at DetroitMI.gov so we can get you on an email list. help amplify and promote our public meetings. And then, as Megan and Todd have said, keep going to meetings. You have your city council, your legislators, keep telling people what's important to you, and keep talking to the city. So keep doing what you're doing.
I don't know, Todd, if you want to say anything about, I know you did a nice presentation when we were having our Transportation Civic Academy. What does it really look like to ensure that transportation is for everyone?
Well, I think first of all, you have to recognize that it's not going to be perfect the first time out. We typically do what's good, better, best. So sometimes we take incremental steps to make things better and better and better. So, I mean, that has certainly happened on these bike lanes out here, where, initially they were just regular painted bike lanes, then they advanced to separated bike lanes, and now we're getting wide sidewalks, better crosswalks and sidewalk level bike lanes. So you got to be patient, but keep the long-term vision, but be willing to fight for those intermediate steps to get you to where you want to go. And then
street changes that you've seen that you feel are really a positive step, like just in case people aren't really, some of us know a lot about it, but the people who don't know that much about what it looks like, can you share a little more?
Well, I think the Avenue of Fashion is really the one that we point to the most, because it was such a drastic change. I know it has an interesting history because the median was put in the middle and people didn't like the median at all. So they took the median out, but they went on a major road diet to go down to 3 lanes. And I tell you personally, I didn't think that was going to work at first. But they piloted it and tried it out, and the numbers worked. So they put it in, and people say, why do we need these wide sidewalks? And then COVID happens and everyone's like, oh, we need wide sidewalks. So it was perfect, but it helps local businesses. Before that streetscape went in, the average speed on Livernois on the Avenue of Fashion was 40 miles per hour with cars hitting 60 and 70 miles per hour. And the speed limit was 30. So are you going to want to sit in an outdoor cafe when cars are going that fast by you? Probably not. Now, after this road diet went in with the sidewalks and the bike lanes, the average speed is 30 miles an hour, which is the speed limit. And we have businesses now having outdoor cafes, putting their wares out on the sidewalk. So it's really helped change that whole area. And it's brought about, last I heard, $20 million of private investment in businesses along that corridor. And the same thing is happening along McNichols too. A lot of private investment is following these good, safe street designs, because cars are not just using this as a quick pass through to get places. They're slowing down, or they're local folks, and they're looking at what's going on, and they want to stop and get out and shop and partake in what's going on.
Yeah, as someone who lives right in that area, it is really wonderful to see. And there are certainly a lot of complaints. Yes, there are times that I have to stop my car and someone figures out how to parallel park, who clearly doesn't have a lot of experience with that. But one of the greatest comparisons that I was given is this street for the people who live and work and shop on it, or is it a pass through for people going through the area? And thinking about what we want the streets to be like, if you live right nearby there, if you have a business right there, if you bike or walk or shop or otherwise travel in that area. So yes, sometimes the traffic gets a little slow and people have complained, but on the grand scheme of things, the biking is really lovely. There's some wonderful events happening on the sidewalks. So I think that's probably a good example. And that's also really important what you said, that the city is trying out a lot of different things, and not everything works perfectly the first time. So give some patience, give some feedback, and look at different ways that different streets can be developed to really serve all users. We have time for probably 2 more questions before we need to wrap up. So we'll do one more in the room here.
I just want to invite everybody to our parking day. I might be preaching to the choir, but parking day is a global celebration of self-organizing tactical urbanism that started in 2005 with John Bella and group that took over a parking space in San Francisco and turned it into a parklet. And then parklets became this big thing. But anyways, it's September 19th at Metropolis Cycles next door. So just save the date and I'll be pushing it out to Megan and Todd and everybody. And it's really, we're just we use a digital design platform to kind of gather all these insights around like what bottom up solutions are, like Todd described about the long local bike clubs here. And those things, like how many of those things can we gather and try to get into a holistic platform? Okay.
That's a great reminder. There are a lot of different organizations who are doing wonderful work and figuring out ways to do this right. There is not one single answer that's going to work everywhere. But this idea, in case anyone's not familiar with Parking Day, it's the idea of taking parking spaces and turning them into something else, into play spaces, into dining spaces, into recreational spaces, and really as to get people thinking about just how much land we give up for parking and how much greater our communities could be if we didn't assume that every single vehicle should always be able to park right in front of their every destination at all times. It's absurd, and it doesn't create a positive community. So yeah, Parking Day, Detroiters for Parking Reform. There's a lot of different efforts to shift how people are thinking. And actually, maybe I will ask, I know it's not specifically your area, but I know the city is working on updating its master plan. There's some great discussions underway with Plan Detroit and really rethinking more from the land use and zoning side of things, but really thinking about what we want our city to look like in the future. Are you able to share anything about Plan Detroit? Not really. Okay.
There is a section specific on transportation, so definitely follow the website Plan Detroit. You'll probably see me at one of the transportation meetings, but I don't have much beyond the website.
That's fine. We're hoping to set up an event this fall, a Transit Tuesday talk, bringing in some of the folks from Plan Detroit so we can have some conversations about how land use and zoning tie into transportation and transit and walkability and all of those pieces, because none of this is unrelated. Final questions? Was there anything on the website okay. Any final questions? Yes.
Thank you. This question is maybe most directed for Christina. I know, so you talked a little bit about the Safe Streets for All federal grants that the city's been very successful in getting at. And I really applaud the city for their success in getting 3 major grants in a row. I know one of them is focused on addressing safety issues near transit stops. So I think it was something close to $25 million that the city is going to make improvements near over 50 different transit stops that are highly used. And there's a pattern of crashes that pedestrians or bicyclists are involved in. I was just wondering if you could give us some idea of what those projects might look like. Because we talk a lot about improving transit service, but people have to usually walk or bike to get to their transit stop, and that can be an unsafe trip on its own. So just interested in the progress on that. Thanks.
Excellent question and an excellent tie-in. All of this stuff is interrelated.
So if you didn't get the handout when you walked in, or there's not one on your table, this is going to be shared, I think, online, our Safe Streets for All, Detroiters Safe Access to Transit. You'll see where those locations are. And then some of the potential upgrades are transit amenities, sidewalk widening, ADA improvements, lighting, pavement marking, and centerline hardening, where we actually put in almost like a delineator up the center. So it just, again, depends on the type of crashes we're seeing. This is very data-driven. Some of these do overlap with county and state roads for the transit stops. So we just are now wrapping up our request for proposals to get a design consultant on board. So I don't anticipate having community meetings about this for at least 6 months. We'll be doing this in conjunction of updating our Streets for People transportation plan that I discussed earlier. But definitely check out the back side of that flyer that I left about Safe Streets for All. It cannot include bus shelters. That's not permitted under FHWA, but we are working closely with our DDOT partners.
And that it's a great reminder that the city is currently in the midst of building or replacing, I think, about 100 shelters. They've gotten over 40 done last year, and they're working on another 60 bus shelters, replacing ones that were in bad shape, putting some new in new locations. So again, sometimes it feels like there's not that much happening because we don't have some big dramatic project. I mean, I suppose the Greenway is a pretty big, but on the transit side, but all of these little pieces really do add up. Yeah, every transit trip starts or ends with some sort of walk or bike ride. And so if it doesn't feel safe or comfortable to walk or bike from your home or to your destination, then a lot of trips don't happen. And so that's one of the reasons why I'm thrilled to work with Todd on a lot of these advocacy efforts and consistently figuring out ways that we can push local, state, even federal legislators and decision makers to invest in these really important components in our communities, and that we have such great leadership at the city of Detroit, really deeply looking at, again, it's going to be hard. This is a huge city. It's going to take a long time to undo decades of auto-centric development, but we've got some great steps in the right direction that I think can improve in a lot of ways. I want to ask if you guys have any final remarks, and then I'm going to give a couple of final remarks, and then those who are interested can go out and do a little walk on the Joe Louis Greenway, or those who want to stick around here, we can continue the conversation. But any closing remarks?
Again, I can't emphasize how important it is for people to get out to community meetings, keep doing what you're doing, contacting people, advocating for what you think is important. Make sure your voices are heard, and also your neighbors' voices.
And I think that's a great way to know. Just because we have great people who are doing great work within the city, we need to back them up. We need to back up the people who are trying to do the right thing. So even if you're like, oh, my decision makers are already on board, they still need to hear from you. If just to back up, well, gosh, I have to do this thing. My constituents really want it. Even if they're leaning in the right direction, it can be really effective to have a strong community voice as well. So final thoughts from Todd.
Yeah, I know we talked about some stuff negatively about all that's happening in the transportation world, but there's a lot of positive things happening in Detroit this year. The Ralph C. Wilson Centennial Park is going to open, which includes the boardwalk, Riverwalk in front of the Riverfront Apartments. The 12th West Jefferson and Rosa Parks are getting a streetscape that's under construction as well. Super exciting. Many sections of the Joe Louis Greenway are getting concrete poured right now. It's amazing how fast that's happening. And that includes the portion that the Gordie Howe Bridge it has. They've poured concrete now for their section of the Joe Louis Greenway along Jefferson. If you've been out there, it's starting to look really good. Of course, the bridge to Canada is going to open this year. We don't have a date yet, but that will open. It's going to include a 10-foot wide biking and walking path. We will have our own customs booth. We will not have to mix with traffic at all. It'll be a direct connect right off the Joe Louis Greenway. Yeah. So I'm sure we're going to hear about in the future. We're going to have these stories about people who were riding their bike on the Joe Louis Greenway and accidentally ended up in Canada, right? Because they took the wrong turn. No, I don't think so. And then if you've been on Belle Isle, they're putting down the new the pathway around the outside of the island between the road and the water, which is going to be, it's going to go all the way around the island. Yeah. No, not the bike lane. This is actually a separate trail, off-road trail. Yeah. That's between the road and the water. And it's probably going to be more for going slow or for walking and jogging. Rather than fast bikes will probably still stay on the road. And the DNR is still doing a lot more, and MDOT is still doing a lot more work on improving the roads on Belle Isle. So all told, there's just a lot going on this year. It's going to be super exciting to see when all this stuff opens up.
Yeah, I think that's a great reminder that sometimes you don't always see the efforts that are underway, the people who are working diligently day in, day out to fight for every last penny for grant dollars, to advocate. Years, I'm a little afraid to ask how long you've been fighting to make sure we actually have that walkway on the new bridge, because it's been a lot of them. But we can win. We can have really positive changes in our community. We can have new bus stops. We can have more frequent buses when we all come together. So I want to take a quick moment to share a couple of the things that True has going on. As I mentioned, June 4th, the latest in our double DDOT campaign will be that Detroit Mayoral Forum. Tickets are free, but they are likely to run out. I keep wanting to say sell out, but so if you want to come to that, please make sure to get your tickets, reserve your space so you can be there as we discuss with the next mayor of Detroit what their vision is going to be for transit. What's that? Yeah, go to detroittransit.org. And you can easily find the link if you didn't get the email or just earlier today that Joel sent out. So yes, detroittransit.org, you can get those tickets. We're also working on just doing some more fun ways to get together and to demonstrate what's possible. So we've got a bus to the ball game, to the DCFC football, Detroit City football game. So if you want to join us, whether you're a regular bus rider or not, join us on a group ride from either Rosa Parks Transit Center or from Jason Hargrove Transit Center. We're going to be riding the bus to the game and having a fun big meetup at the game. You can buy your tickets at the game at our website as well, with a little donation coming to True. And you can let us know if you're going to join us. So we're finding lots of different fun things. We're going to have another Transit Tuesday talk in June, virtually focused on the city, on DDOT and the People Mover. And then hopefully we're going to be going to Ann Arbor in July, doing a big ride along out to Ann Arbor and talking about some of the efforts that they've got underway. So we've got a lot of great things happening, figuring out how we're going to try to expand, how we are going to expand transit throughout all of Wayne County. Is also underway. So I believe if you either registered or signed in, we should have your email and we'll get you updates. But please come out and be part of making change. It doesn't just happen. It takes lots of voices and lots of people to speak out. And lastly, it is in fact True. True is celebrating May membership month, and we are working to get 60 new members. And actually tomorrow evening, we're doing our little telethon. And not to put her on the spot or anything, but if we get at least 10 new members tomorrow night, Teresa will be doing 10 backflips and if we get up to 60 new members by the end of the year, or by the end of May, Deb, our assistant director, is going to dye her hair true blue. So yes. So we're figuring out some fun ways to encourage people. But if you care about transit and mobility issues, please make a donation at any level to support True, and continue to come out to great events like this. So another big thank you to our speakers for the amazing work they're doing. And if you are interested in going on a walk and going to see the Greenway, you're leading our... Okay. You're on it. And you're going right. All right. Join Todd and Z over by the stairs in, I don't know, 2 or 3 minutes and go for a walk. Check it all out. Thank you so much, everyone. For Katie, our server.